You know what's crazy to think about is the fact that the Wii U sold worse than the GameCube. Isn't that, like, it's just something that, like, I wouldn't even expect because, you know, as we get older and more generations come in and more people are indoctrinated into video games, you would just imagine that even if there was a failure console for Nintendo, it would still do better than that generation of gaming. But no, the GameCube actually sold more than the Wii U, and both didn't do that great. The third place winner of a three-man race was the GameCube back in the day. And I just kind of want to talk about both consoles and what the heck happened with each one. With a console not doing great for Nintendo, I do think that it has to be like a multifaceted thing. You can't just like chalk it up to one big thing. But I was that generation that was targeted for GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. We didn't have a whole slew of adult gamers back then. It was still kind of taboo for our parents to be gamers. You could see it from time to time, but it wasn't most parents. So the primary gamer target was our generation and younger. And with that being said, I was a hardcore Nintendo fan, so I was just all in on getting a GameCube because I loved Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers came out soon enough in the console's lifespan for me to see that, yeah, okay, cool. There's definitely something going on here with this console. I'm all in, baby. Let's go. But I know that a lot of people that I went to high school with who used to like Nintendo started viewing the console differently than past consoles. Suddenly, there's this whole image of the GameCube being a baby's console, a little kid's console. And it has a lot to do with the fact that it was a purple cube. That was such a weird choice. I mean, now it's iconic. So the people behind the scenes definitely were on to something, but the GameCube itself will always just be something that was a little bit too far ahead of its time, which is really unfortunate because look at what came out then and how much it would work now in today's market. Luigi's Mansion. It is an amazing franchise. It was selling amazingly now that there's sequels out and there's future generations and everybody coming to terms with, you know, the innovations that came from out of the GameCube. Some people fond memories, some people trying to just find out what the magic in the bottle was, and some people that just are more open-minded to games than they were in the past. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. Luigi's Mansion back in the day was something that people didn't want to see. Pikmin was another thing that people didn't want to see. Super Mario Sunshine is again a game that people didn't want to see at the time. Wind Waker. There was two things working against Nintendo at the time. The first one was, of course, the innovation. We didn't want to see a lot of innovation back then. We just wanted to embrace the graphical leap from the Nintendo 64 to the PlayStation 2 GameCube era. And when you're not getting a Mario 64 direct sequel type game, and instead Mario's in a tropical environment with a water pack, it's a little too much of a departure from Mario 64 for a lot of players back then. Also, Wind Waker, you know, it's just like you go from a game that had fairly serious graphics to suddenly this cartoony little kid role thing. And again, a lot of people had a problem with that. And all of these mistakes mind you, please bear with me for a moment here, they added up to the public perception that the Nintendo console wasn't as cool as the Grand Theft Auto, Halo consoles that were competing against them. And so a lot of people gravitated towards the PlayStation 2. Helps that it came out when it did, and also just, again, so much third-party support that you just can't ignore that console. You had like Final Fantasy X, and like I said a moment ago, Grand Theft Auto, and Kingdom Hearts, so many great franchises. Whereas with GameCube, they actually did have some great IP, but some of them you didn't even realize were a thing. Like, I didn't know that the Twin Snakes was a remake to the original Metal Gear Solid at the time. I had to find out later. I actually had to buy the game first, if I'm honest with you, pop it in, and then find out, oh my god, this is a remake to Metal Gear Solid. What? And that game only sold, I think, like 70,000 copies? Yikes. Big freaking yikes. That's all because of marketing. So again, you know, the third party support was initially strong, and then there was like sort of like a whiplash from the lack of sales because PlayStation 2 and Xbox were sort of guzzling all the sales from most of the customers at the time, which again was a smaller pool of gamers than there are today. So when we keep that in mind, it's just that the GameCube ends up looking like an unfavorable console, and things like the color of the console, the shape and size of the discs in the console, the type of games that you're putting out and how it looks on a commercial or in a magazine, because the internet wasn't there to, it wasn't like, it was there, but there wasn't like as strong communities like Twitter and Reddit and stuff like that, really putting a spotlight on things that were just incredible games. And again, the thing with the GameCube is that I feel like that level of innovation that we saw during that generation would work so much better now. I would love to see something that just goes as hard as a Luigi's Mansion. That's a new idea, by the way. I'm not talking about Luigi's Mansion 3. Or something as hard as Super Mario Sunshine. I mean, I feel like we got that with Galaxy, which was sort of like a good balance because there wasn't like an apparition on it. Apparatus on Mario's back. And then, like, as future console generations went on, there was sort of a period with the Wii U where everything was homogenized and safe. Like, Super Mario 3D World was too safe. It was not like the big grandiose 3D Mario adventure, so there wasn't a lot to talk about. Sure, it was a great title to give to your kids or play with the family, and so you might have fond memories of it now, but for somebody that might be playing with Nintendo games for a long time, it just felt too plain. And then there's the new Super Mario Brothers franchise that, again, way too safe. And so now we're basically moving on to Wii U here. What was the Wii U's big problem? Oh my god, multifaceted problems. First of all, not everybody was on board with the gimmick, which was the giant screen controller. I loved it. I thought it was cool. I was on board with it, but I know a lot of people that didn't like that. Here's the biggest problem of all with the Wii U on its initial launch. Its marketing was awful. Like, terrible. Again, I worked at Toys R Us back in the day. You might remember me mentioning this in an earlier video, but I got to be on the ground floor. I got to see what the normies, the parents that don't play video games were saying and thinking. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of marketing showing the console of the Wii U. The name Wii U is also incredibly confusing to someone that's not keeping up with the industry. So when you say to somebody, hey, you're going to pick up a Wii console? Why don't you try picking up a Wii U? A parent thinks to themselves, oh my god, I am so done with these accessories. I don't want it. Because remember, they picked up the Wii Fit Pad. They picked up the Wii Motion Plus. And so, like, there's all these buzzwords and names for accessories that when by the time you get to the Wii U, it just sounds like another accessory, a very expensive accessory in their minds. So they don't want to pick it up. And little Timmy's not even asking for the thing because it just wasn't the hit console for even younger people back then. So, like, no one's asking for it. Even the ones that probably are asking for it, the parents don't get the idea that it's a brand new console, so they're not willing to pick it up. And so, like, that was like a big issue with the general public. This is just a guess, okay? Just a really, like, I'm pulling this one from outer space type guess. But with the way that Nintendo revealed the Wii U and focusing completely on the pad and taking forever to even show the console itself, part of me thinks that they almost wanted to try to trick people into thinking it was an accessory and hope that that would help the sales because of how uber successful the Wii was. It clearly backfired in their face. I might be completely wrong about that, and they just really wanted to show off the pad itself. But it is a bit odd that for like the most earliest of campaigns, or sorry, the earliest reveals for the console, they still didn't really show the console for a hot minute. We had to wait and see what it was when it was first revealed. That's the wildest thing of all. And then again, combine all that with the fact that there was just no third-party support. Like, that was probably the worst third-party support in Nintendo's complete history. And again, I've been there for the GameCube, so like, if it's worse than that, that's pretty bad. And then the Nintendo first-party games wasn't good out the gate. You know, you had like Nintendo's Nintendo Land, which again, it's not like it's not as strong as like Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo, or I guess you could count Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube because it wasn't too far off from the launch window. And then you got Super Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64. Like, man, in comparison to that, yikes. Like, Nintendo Land is a very, very weak comparison. Now, in hindsight, I think we all agree, like, Nintendo Land is a bop. It's actually really fun to play with friends and stuff if you're willing to dust off your Wii U and find your friends at this point. But, like, it ended up being kind of fun, kind of cool. But, again, by comparison's sake, and when you really want to have a strong start to your console's lifespan, it wasn't there. And then, like I said, as things kind of progressed, there was never an exclusive Wii U Zelda title. Keep that in mind. Like, the Breath of the Wild came out on both the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch, which made it a strong launch for the Nintendo Switch, but like, just it meant nothing to the lifespan of the Wii U, and then it was just ports for Zelda games after that. So there was literally no console exclusive Zelda adventure for the Wii U console, which is insane. And then the console exclusive Mario title, 3D Mario title, was 3D Land, like I said just a moment ago, a little bit wimpy compared to past entries. So it never found a place in terms of like software, third-party support, and marketing. And when you combine those things together, it just becomes a whirlwind of disaster for this console generation. To me, it's no surprise at all. And again, I loved the Wii U. I still have my console. I love playing Star Fox Zero and Pikmin 3 from time to time, although now I'm playing that more on my Switch, of course. So, it's just a shame. It's a shame that things couldn't line up the way that you normally see it for Nintendo. But now you see the ramifications of when it doesn't line up correctly, or Nintendo makes these big wrong mistakes, because it can be catastrophic. It can almost take you out of the console competition. Like, it's insane. So yeah, anyways, that's my thoughts on those two consoles. And I just, again, wanted to share my 2 cents with it. It's just kind of rolling off the cuff as per usual. There's probably more data out there or testimonials that might be able to say things a bit differently or completely differently. So I apologize if I didn't do all of my research, but just know that this was definitely just sort of like a, one man sharing his thoughts type vid. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this one, and take care.